Hey everybody, Adam Savage in Phil Tippett Studios with Mark Dubeau. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
I'm so excited to see you. Mark called me up last week and said, dude, we've set something up on the floor at Tippett. You've got to come by and see it. You didn't say I had 10 seconds to comply, but I knew it was important.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a way to slip that joke in. What is this?
This is the original 1-to-1 scale ED-209 that was used in 1987's RoboCop and in subsequent films.
So this is literally, okay, I always thought that the one in the film was stop motion, but this is the full-size one used on set.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually something that made more sense for filming because they only had a small budget for the animation.
Right.
And they knew that they needed to have ED-209 in like a bunch of shots. And so Phil and Craig Hayes kind of knocked heads together and came up with the plan to build a 1-to-1 scale that would be whenever you needed him to be static.
Right. But so this is like, they had already built a stop motion animatable puppet, which itself is a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of bios from the art department and how it looks aesthetically.
Yeah.
And then after that, they went and made it full size.
You know, I'm not entirely sure if that's exactly the timeline. I think the design was probably happening concurrently between the two of them. But yeah, I mean, Craig Hayes came in at the behest of Phil Tippett because Phil got on the show and then he was asked to design the robot.
Right.
And Phil is like a creature monster kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so he did like a couple of shakes at it and then he realized, oh, I need to bring in somebody who's more of an industrial designer. And
that's where Craig comes in.
That's where Craig came in. And he met him at like a party or like a barbecue or something like that. And so he brings in this guy who's like, he's like 21 years old, but like has this incredible portfolio. And not only does Craig show that he can design the robot to the production satisfaction, but he also could build it.
What?
And he led up the building of the full-size one. He actually did it pretty much himself with his then girlfriend, who I believe he married, and then also led up the building of the puppet.
Okay, so
21.
21 years old. That's annoyingly young, impressively young, but also like, I'm assuming this is like a welded steel armature and a whole crap ton of fiberglassing work. I'm wrong about that?
There's a lot of fiberglass.
Yes.
But as you know, we brought it down because we're cleaning up the studio and we wanted to put him in a place that he was a little more shielded, get the dust off him.
And he was stored like this, but way up in a rafter
he was
for
up in the
a couple of decades.
And you know, the idea was, you know, to kind of take him down, clean him off a bit and whatnot. And then as we did that, you know, he comes apart. We start noticing like the framework inside, it's all wood. He's so light.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, the framework inside is all wood. We had to take a couple of parts off, and then in this area here, this actually comes off, and you can see inside, and it's just...
Dude, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
This is just 2 pine beams.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Incredible engineering. I mean, it does seem like the fiberglass also
acts lending a tremendous amount of structure.
But yeah, it's very surprising. Like,
oh my God, every bolt is fake. I didn't really realize.
Yeah. So yeah, we were really impressed. I mean, I continue to be impressed by the design and then, you know, the construction of this. Like, we were expecting to break our backs when we brought them down, and then as each individual piece came off,
it was so light.
I was like, oh, this doesn't weigh that much. This doesn't weigh that much. So yeah, we brought them down and we cleaned them off, and then we took a look to make sure nothing was like broken or anything like that.
Oh my God, everything's vacuum formed. I had no idea.
This is vacuum formed. This is vacuum formed. These are actually vacuum formed. It's held on with a magnet. This, mostly vacuum formed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Just brilliant. I think.
It is so brilliant. You've loved this model forever.
This is the reason I got into film, you know. Like, I was a kid. This came out when I was about 12, 13.
Yeah.
So just the right age. And before that, I mean, I loved Raiders of the Lost Ark and Blade Runner and whatnot. And those made me interested in film and special effects and sci-fi. But this movie and ED-209 made me think like, that's what I want to do. And the fact that, the more I learn about how they put it together and the history of it and everything like that, the more I feel like it's probably one of the most ingenious creations I've ever seen.
Incredible.
So
you, like, despite you already loving it and it being part of your origin story, taking it down and putting it together gave you a whole new set of appreciations for it?
Yeah, I mean, I have Craig and Phil, very, very, high in my respect pantheon. And, after seeing this guy and working here for like 17 years. And getting to see this guy, there's always new stuff I'm noticing about him. There's little Easter eggs on him that when we took him down, we were kind of giggling about, and
Well, so I'm curious, right? Like we talk a lot on this channel about building models and adding scale to miniatures.
Yeah.
And this obviously started its life sort of somewhere between full size and miniature. But I'm curious if there are things you've noticed about the aesthetic layout that are showing you new things about working at this kind of scale.
Yeah, I mean, you also see this in like a lot of Star Wars props and whatnot. There's a lot of real world that goes into it, just to add additional detail. Like we noticed that, I could see it. You can see it on this panel right here, but this is like the inside of like a coffee cup lid. It's obvious that's what it is. I mean,
that is,
yeah, it's a coffee cup lid, and it shows up in a couple of places, and I think it's absolutely brilliant because it looks great. And if you look at the front of the weapon here, this looks like it's all sprinkler head parts.
Oh, it does.
It's
look
all
like
plumbing. It's all plumbing pieces. So,
oh my God.
And then they also had to make this in kind of like that 1/6. It's about maybe 1/5, 1/6.
Right, they had to make it work in that scale.
Yeah, so to be able to go back and forth between this and the puppet, like some of the wires and everything, like these actually show up on the puppet, but they're so fine.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Like I can see them just going blind trying to put them on. So.
I want to point out there's a really funny Star Wars connection here with coffee cups. My friend Steve Walton, who did the painting on Davy Jones, actually one morning came in and noticed a way the coffee had stained on the plastic lid, and he took a picture of that and used it as a texture on the tentacles.
Oh.
Yeah, so like
that's pretty cool.
The special effects artisan looks at their cup of coffee and thinks, "Oh, I can use that."
Yeah, definitely. It's just a really brilliant design, and we found a couple of little things as we were going through it. But you look at it and you think like, "Oh, this is all metal," and it's like, no, it's
none of it's metal.
Yeah, there's like little plates of metal. They show up in the big maw in the front. There's like
here we go.
There's a radiator from there. There's an automobile radiator.
Oh, it's a real radiator.
It's a real radiator.
Sorry, I don't mean to yell.
There's a radiator in there, a couple. It's just like maybe from a Volkswagen or something like that.
So now it makes sense to me. Here, I'm going to give you this before I drop it. It makes sense to me that it is so lightweight because if you're going to bring this out to a set, no one wants to wait around a long time for you to go get earth-moving equipment to lift this into place.
Yeah.
But like, can a couple of guys lift the top half of this?
Yeah, 2 people can lift the top off as long as the arms are off. Overall, I think he only weighs a little over 300 pounds.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the fact that like wooden framework in the legs is holding up something,
Well, that's the thing, that a wooden framework comes cantilevered out to here, cantilevered out to here, back to in there. There's got to be some beautiful structure going on in there.
Yeah, we can't see inside there, but I'm sure it's brilliant. I mean,
I also love the foam spring here.
Yeah, even on the joints, it's just foam. It's very old, but
it's holding up actually not poorly.
It looks great. It's
for its age.
Just coiled around.
Yeah, so this is just a trapezoid of foam glued around a piece of like PVC pipe or something.
And this is all held on with bungees.
No way.
Yeah, there's a bungee on the top, a bungee on the bottom.
Can we take it off?
I think we could. Yeah, you just basically take the one off the top,
Yeah.
take the one off the bottom, and then it just comes off.
Dude.
How much does it weigh?
Maybe 4 pounds, 5
Yeah.
pounds.
And it's keyed,
It's
so you know.
Oh, so you can't screw it up.
Yeah. So
This is really important. Don't ever take it on faith that you can remember how to put your thing back together. That's yeah.
So brilliant, yeah. So when we took it apart, you know, we tried to make sure that, you know, nothing was broken, and you know, if there was like, you know, because sometimes age kind of like, especially with vacuum form, it'll get brittle. So we just went in and just made sure that nothing was really broken.
God,
And
and every nut and bolt is cast.
yeah, and they're riveted in.
I see that. That's a pop rivet. Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
brilliant.
amazing.
Again, you know, like this design still hasn't been bested, in my opinion. I know that you have a lot of love for Kane.
I do have a lot of love for
Designed by
Kane.
the same guy, but
Well, I feel like I see design details in Ed that show up later in Kane.
Yeah.
Like the springs proud of the clevis here. I mean, sorry, the gear teeth that are proud of the clevis. I
Yeah.
think that's in Kane's elbows.
I think so. Yeah.
So I feel some, and I mean, given that I've spent hundreds of hours crawling over every part of Kane as you have, I can feel some real commonality between the two.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, I would love, if they do another RoboCop movie, I would love for Craig to be contacted to design the new ED-209 or whatever it is. Like, go back to the original source. There's nothing broken about
the design.
about ED-209. You know,
No.
you could, but
It feels exactly like this is 100% a solution that this company would come up with for this for this application.
and currently the paint job on ED-209, it reflects RoboCop 3.
RoboCop
3.
Ah, I see.
In the original film, he was brand new, he was clean, and then by the third film, they had
He's
an
seen
ED-209.
some street action.
Yeah, so you can see there's like, it looks like
Right, there's drips and
rust.
I
and-
noticed there's like hydraulic dart down there and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's great. And I love his little, his big chicken feet. And, that shows up in the puppet as well. They're really well engineered.
Well, it's also, I love the mechanical hubris of we can make it do anything, but oh wait, stairs?
Yeah.
Okay, you said there are Easter eggs. I'm curious about what you found.
Well, the coffee cups show up like
there's another, right?
all over the place. That's and then there's obviously the radiators and whatnot in front. So let's see. Besides the coffee cups, a lot of this stuff, especially like around the guns in the front, like a lot of that looks like it's like plumbing supplies and whatnot.
It really does.
Yeah, and there's even just little ratchet straps and stuff like that.
You must have just kept on being like, I can't believe how light these pieces are.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we found, it's not really an Easter egg, but this was modified afterwards.
Yeah.
The leg opens up.
Is that for some narrative thing that they hadn't taken care of?
In RoboCop 3, this girl hacks.
Oh, right. I remember that.
ED-209, and so she goes in through here. And
so that's
all of these are just,
That's a RoboCop add-on.
Yeah, it was added on for part 3.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, because like we were noticing when we brought it down, like how come one of these looks different to the other ones?
Yeah.
And
so you hadn't, right, of course, because all the tiny changes that happen in the course of a film aren't necessarily things everyone's going to remember.
Yeah, we didn't know about this until we brought him down.
Incredible.
And so, he's got this little hidden panel.
Dude.
It's pretty cool.
Oh my God, everything is so,
Yeah.
I'm just so into how light it all is.
Yeah.
Because it literally, I would have no problem believing this weighed 4,000 or 5,000 pounds.
Yeah. And one thing we also realized is that in terms of like this piece is exactly the same. It's not mirrored. It's the exact same thing on the other side.
They're not bilaterally symmetrical. They are identical.
The same thing with everything on the legs.
So he designed that in from the get-go because The other way lies madness.
Yeah, it's and there are little things. It looks like that it was done to it so that if you flipped it over to the other side, it would look like a separate piece.
Right,
you know,
right.
Like just on here, it's like the same on the other side, but because it's turned around, those details are different front to back.
Amazing.
And then, you know, a little plate was put on the other leg in the front to give it a sense of something.
Well, I mean, also from a manufacturing standpoint, you'd want to make the complicated parts the same because you lower your manufacturing costs and everything.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this beautiful thing?
Oh, this is fun. Yeah. This is one of those things that people didn't know somebody might have, you know, thrown out one day, but so at the end of RoboCop 1, when RoboCop is fighting ED-209 in Dick Jones' office, at one point
he uses one gun.
He pushes the arm of ED-209 up, and he completely blows off the front end of his arm. So they made a standalone piece to put on so that
what was the leftover parts.
Now, I mean, I can't recall if he just stopped working at that point, you know, like because he continues after him. I
love. There's some really like awesome model making here to highlight, which is the fiberglass has been cut in a broken pattern, but then augmented with foil.
Just tin foil.
Just to look like it's torn away. And then it looks like he grabbed inside of an entire sort of car wheel structure here.
Something like that, yeah.
And just glued that in there with a bunch of tubes.
Yeah, vacuum tubes and...
Dude, that is...
it's a great piece.
A marvelous object lesson, and executing one of these at speed too.
Yeah. Well, there's a funny story apparently about him needing to bring this to set.
Yeah.
And you know, Phil has told that story, but you know, he essentially because he wanted to make sure that it showed up with him. He brought it in as apparently like carry-on. And so it went through like everybody was like, "Are you bringing like a bomb or something like that?" Now that's the legend.
Right.
That's the legend. Whether or not that actually happened, but yeah, I don't even know if this had its own seat.
Right. Oh.
But in my mind's eye, I could see this sitting in a seat on an airplane. I don't think you could get this on an airplane.
You could not get this on an airplane today. And I've taken some spectacularly strange things on airplanes, but they would not be okay.
It's like wires and metal pieces
and hot glue and fiberglass.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There's like, you know, like a phone cord. You know?
So what happens to ED-209? Does he go back up into storage?
Well, what we want to do is, because we've gotten all the dust off him and everything like that, and we've propped him up just as an extra precaution.
So he doesn't necessarily need this central post under his neck, but it helps.
It helps. I mean, he's getting on in age. He's almost like, you know, almost 40 years old. So
40 years since RoboCop.
Yeah, about 1987. So what we want to do is put him in a more covered place where we can actually put a tarp over the front of him and no dust will fall on him. And then that way, if we have, you know, anybody who comes by who really is a big fan, he's a little more accessible and we keep him clean. We keep him from getting damaged.
Yeah.
You know, he used to be like up there where you see like an empty spot, and he was only being held up by a cable that was holding him to the wall.
Oh, shit.
And the fact that, you know, like over time, wood and screws and stuff like that,
they settle.
They
But
settle.
he didn't tear himself apart.
He didn't tear himself apart. So when we took him down, we're like, yeah, you know, we have like a sunroof or whatever, you know, that we open and close, and sun would beat down on him, and it was just like, yeah, let's put him somewhere where, you know, we can keep him out of the sun so that it doesn't fade. And
I have to say, it's true what you said earlier. I am a much bigger fan of Kane from RoboCop 2. However, being in close proximity to this, I am finding a whole new love of the industrial design.
Yeah.
Really specifically, the layout of the parts and how they relate to each other is something really special.
Yeah, and he's kind of like the granddaddy of a lot of robots that you see, especially like in anime and whatnot. Like, I don't, it's Robotech and whatnot. Like borrow from this guy like, all the time, and it's like he's fantastic and he's simple, and you can kind of see where the design aesthetic kind of came from. You can see that a killer whale was, one of the
inspirations. Yes,
yeah.
I can. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But the moment you say it, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and military helicopters, and and then Phil, was the guy who recommended that, because originally its opening was going like this.
Yeah.
And then Phil told him to reverse it so it was going down like that, so it makes him look like he's angry.
Like he's a frown.
Yeah, I think
that's
it's great.
what Phil. That's the special sauce Phil brings, right?
Yeah.
It's always he always knows where the character is.
That's just it, like I think it was like lightning in a bottle between the two of them building this guy.
And they met at a party.
Yeah, and you watch RoboCop, and the RoboCop suit and ED-209. If you put it in a film tomorrow, I mean, people wouldn't say that looks dated.
No, not at all.
They're timeless.
I totally agree. It is so beautiful. I noticed I didn't like standing in front of the gun barrels.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for this tour.
Problem.
This is such a
yeah.
It's such an important piece of film history.
Yeah.
Like film design and robotic history, because this virtuous cycle of things that happen aesthetically in movies leading to changes in industry because of how it inspires people. This is like such an OG.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I mean, I would love to say I was the guy who came up with the idea, but I've just, Phil trusts me to kind of curate some of the stuff around here and make sure that, it stays in good shape and whatnot. And so ED-209 is definitely one of those guys where it's like, just make sure it doesn't fall out of the sky.
I've told this story on the channel before, but when Phil introduced Mark and I, he said, "You guys are interested in the same esoteric crap. I think you'll get along."
Yeah. And I think like I gave you like a RoboCop helmet, and you gave me an Aliens.
There we go.
Dome.
It starts out with at a nice high level.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you, man. This is
pleasure's always mine.
I really appreciate. Mark called me up just a couple weeks ago and was like, "It's down on the floor. You got to come out here and see it. It's going to blow your mind," and it blew my mind.
He's big. He's bigger than I thought.
Dude, you have 10 seconds to comply. Fortunately, we included a way to hack it that's really close to the ground. Why would you do that? I don't know.